What is up, everyone? We are here again on the CFR Draft Show, and I have the homies with me today talking about a couple wide receivers today, my favorite position on the football field, and we're going to be talking about, some of the prospects that the Bills could possibly add that could, bring more explosion to this offense or just make this offense a more well-oiled machine. So we are going to get right into it. We're going to talk about, these wide receiver prospects. And some of these prospects the Bills have spoken to, too. So our first prospect of the night is wide receiver Dax Milne. I think that's how, did I say it right?
Milne.
Dax Milne.
I think it's Milne.
Milne.
That's
Okay,
how it's spelled,
Milne.
I think.
I think it's Milne.
Okay. Dax Milne or Milne. I don't want to butcher his name, but he played with. Right, call him Dax. That's what I was going to say. Just call him Dax. Dax played for BYU. He played with Zach Wilson, who is the projected, number 2 quarterback in this draft class. What I saw, I actually did a game last year for Pro Football Focus, a PP game. They don't know what PP is. This is where you have to identify every player on every play. And I noticed it was against USF, and he was playing against a prospect, not this year, but KJ Sales from USF, who was touted as a lot of people as a really good corner. And I remember he was just getting deep on him like so many times. And I think that's kind of the reoccurring thing with a lot of these guys. Like these are a lot of these guys are getting deep and creating a lot of separation on these go routes. So we're gonna start with TFC. What did you see from Dax that you like and that you didn't like?
Well, first off, I have to say my wife went to Utah, so I saw nothing that I liked. I'm not allowed to like anything about Dax Milne. I think he's got good quickness. He's got kind of a basketball on grass sort of thing where he genuinely, we'll get to another guy later who tries to do this. He genuinely creates doubt in the cornerback with his movement off the line of scrimmage. So I think he can get off press decently well. The problem is he's not anything special physically. Like he's not very strong. He's the thinnest 6'1", 190 I've ever seen. That 190 is generous. He's a body catcher too. So that's the other thing I really don't like is when I see a receiver and they cradle the ball every single time when coming back. He never catches the ball with his hands. And that bothers me because that to me means that in inclement weather, contested catch situations, any of those things, like he's not going to be good in any of those because he doesn't extend. He doesn't give the quarterback a big frame to work with, despite the fact that he's 6 foot tall. I do like that he played out of the slot, and you mentioned speed and deep balls. That was a reoccurring theme of the guys we watched, on that we'll talk about tonight. I think the Bills are trying to add speed, but specifically behind Cole Beasley in the slot, because that was one of those problems they had last year's. When he was shut down, there was no vertical threat from the slot.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing about Dax is like you said, he isn't anything special, but he can add some value in the slot. And you're seeing in TFC, you brought this up last time we were on the air together. You said the Bills are going aggressive at wide receiver. Like they're not waiting for these guys to develop or anything like that. They're going after it, and it shows you that also they're trying to get faster. And that's another thing that you need. You need speed. Like a lot of Emmanuel Sanders, Diggs, all these guys, Gabe Davis. All these guys are speed guys. So, Mud Dog, I want you to talk about, what you saw from Dax, what you like and what you didn't like.
Well, the one thing I like about him is he has a habit of making those acrobatic catches look kind of easy, and he can stay in the bounds or whatever. He has very limited explosiveness. If we were to get him, I'd only like him as a slot guy or a returner. But I think I'm going to be like to you guys when it comes to Dax Malini or Milane. When the Bills come to draft him, I'm going to say, oh, nay, nay.
Yeah, I think what you get with a kid like Dax is he's a technician. I think he's an overachiever type of guy. I think he's going to work his ass off. I think he's going to do everything the coaches ask of him. He's going to do all that stuff. He's a blue-collar guy. But I think I just don't see the fit for him in Buffalo. When you're talking about bringing in another receiver, we have a pretty vast base of talent at the receiving core. So where does a guy like him fit in here? I don't think. Like I think we all said, he's nifty. He's a good route runner, but he's not explosive. He's not going to create a ton of separation. He's a chest catcher. So to me, I look at if we're going to bring in a receiver, I want to bring in someone with a diverse set of skills, and I don't think he has the kind of versatility or athleticism or potential even as a special teamer to really make a difference or even make this roster. So I know they talked with him, so they must have saw something in him. I know he benefited a lot from, catching from Zach Wilson, and he had some big plays. But I just don't see his game really translating to the Buffalo Bills' needs right now. So good kid. I think he's a hard worker, and I think he's going to make a lot of coaches happy. I just don't see his fit here in Buffalo, where we want to get that explosiveness. I think we're all in agreement that we're looking for that kind of missing element, and that's the vertical speed, adding some sort of speed threat to this offense. And I don't think Dax brings that to the table. So I'm a hard pass on the kid. I think overall he's probably a late day 3 prospect as is, and I don't see the fit in Buffalo. I don't see the reason in taking him and adding him.
Oh, TFC, we can't hear you, Brody.
Can you hear me now?
You are on.
There you go.
All right, there we go. I don't know. This mic is super awesome. Let me tell you, I definitely paid a lot of money for it. The one thing I think that he has that the Bills are looking for is he is good at getting off press coverage at the line of scrimmage, like even from the slot. And that was one thing that was a struggle at times last year was when the receivers got jammed up at the line of scrimmage. And a lot of it had to do with injuries. So let's give fair is fair. A lot of those guys are banged up at the end of the year. But they did struggle to get off the line of scrimmage at times and create immediate separation. I think this guy does have that short area quickness. And like you said, he is a good technician of making sure that nobody gets hands on him. So that would be the one thing, the redeeming quality, I would say, that you could sort of project as a backup to Cole Beasley in the slot.
Fair enough.
So we're all in agreement that, Dax is a late day 3 guy, and we feel like if the Bills are going after a speed guy, there's probably better guys out there. I think we're all in agreement on that. Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Good luck somewhere else, Dax.
moving on. Right.
Oh, nay, nay.
Moving on from Dax, we're getting to our next wide receiver, and that is Anthony Schwartz from Auburn. Now, those met with Dax, and the Bills also had a virtual meeting with Anthony Schwartz. And if you guys did not see, Anthony Schwartz ran the fastest 40 times so far out of all the draft prospects. He ran a 4.26, I think, or something like that. 4.26. He ran a 4.26, yes. So just a little background on Anthony Schwartz. Played at Auburn, played with Seth Williams, who's also another wide receiver that's coming out. Very very fast guy. He has a track background, so he holds the Florida State record for the 100-meter. He is a track guy through and through. Speed for days.
Not a lot of speed in Florida, though.
Yeah.
Not a lot of fast guys come out of Florida.
Very rare.
they just talking about the running backs, man. But it's speed in Florida. You don't know it's speed in Florida.
More offensive linemen come out of Florida, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody knows. There was a little tinge of sarcasm in my voice.
Oh, we got you. Oh,
Yeah.
really?
I said that some of my notes were I said he looks bigger on the field. He's 6 foot 186. He catches a lot of scheme stuff, so a lot of bubble screens, reverses, crazy gadget guy. But again, reoccurring thing with him, he got the speed, man. And I said to somebody on Twitter, even though he's not a great route runner, even though he has some concentration drops that I've seen, he has trouble, tracking the ball deep. I think that 4.26 speed is going to warrant some patience from some coach. And I hope it ain't Aaron D. Reed, but so Greg, we'll start with you. What did you see from Anthony Schwartz that you like?
I mean, obviously, if you're talking about Schwartz, you got to start off with speed. The kid's got world-class speed. He's a track guy. He was on the junior Olympic team. He's running the 100 meters. He's freaky fast, But when you see a guy with that kind of speed, and you want to look and see where the production is, there really wasn't a lot of production. I know we'll say there was some iffy quarterback play and stuff like that, and that's fine. But the kid has that home run speed, and you didn't really ever see him get the ball on. You go back, you watch his film. You're not seeing him catching 40, 50-yard passes, getting behind a secondary. He's getting a lot of his receptions underneath, like you said, on reverses, on gadgets, on screens, where he's going to use his speed and kind of be a run after the catch kind of guy. So I think there's potential there because you're talking about somebody with world-class speed, and that's what we're kind of starving for in this offense. And for the first time in a long time, we're in a position to kind of be patient with the kid. We don't need a guy like Schwartz to come in and deliver day one. We could bring him along slowly. We could incorporate him in certain packages in certain situations, and Dable could be creative in putting certain personnel groupings on the field where we're looking to get the speed and put him over the top. That's fine, and I'm not against bringing that speed element in there. I just look at where's the production. I know he's had some injury history, and the speed is a redeeming quality, but I didn't see any real production from the kid. So I think he warrants some consideration. I wouldn't be shocked to see, we don't have a 4th round pick, but that's somewhere I would look to go after Schwartz in that 4th round range if we had the 4th round. But I don't think he'll be there when we come to pick in the 5th. So it's kind of a wash for me.
My dog.
Schwartz is intriguing because of his speed. He's a solid route runner in my opinion. I like the way he can fire into his brakes and get low, as you've seen on that little cut he did in there. He flashes some ability with a strong hand and ability to pull in the ball from the air. But with that, he also struggles to track the ball really bad, in my opinion. He gets tackled way too easily by just one defender. Like, you touch him in his ankle, he's down. I don't get that. I think if he's there in like the 5th, maybe 6th, I'd take a flyer on him. Like Greg said, we don't need him to come in and be a guy. He'll have a chance to develop and become something. I think this is one of those developmental guys. I think he may be able to make a name for himself later on if he gets the opportunity to be able to develop. And I see him.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of a Johnny.
Oh.
He kind of reminds me of a Johnny Knox.
Yeah. So develop into what is my question, and it's, to me, it feels sort of rhetorical because the best guys that run with speed also have size, and I don't mean being 6'2". Like, if you look at Tyreek Hill, that dude is stacked. The only guys that are like true speed guys that are, super effective, Devontae Smith in this class is one guy. I think you can make a case for Jerry Jeudy. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but they have a lot of other stuff going for them, and they still play with physicality. Mud Dog's right. This guy, there's too many times he comes up small, like on all those gadget plays. And by the way, don't get me started on Gus Malzahn's offense. I get furious watching all of that idiocy. Like, oh, here's 2 or 3 different screen passes on one play. Oh, why'd our quarterback get hit for 17-yard loss? Like, and that's the offense he's living in. And so I'm not surprised he didn't get a lot of quality touches. But at the same time, like, so if you want him to develop into world-class athlete kick returner, doesn't break tackles. World-class athlete gunner. You want this guy tackling people? Like, I don't know what he develops into unless he's literally a vertical threat. And somebody brought up Marquise Goodwin in the comments. Again, Marquise Goodwin was a football player. Like, that dude played with physicality. He could track the ball. He had good body control. Like, obviously, he was more interested in track than being a full-on commit-to-it pro football player. But he was a good football player when they drafted him. That was a good pick. This would be the opposite of that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement again that Dax is cool with his speed and all. He has some quality. I mean, not Dax. I'm sorry, Anthony Schwartz. He has some good qualities, and he's cool and all. But if we're gonna take you in a wide receiving core that we have right now, you need to bring something else to the table. And I agree with Greg. If they did draft Schwartz, he wouldn't be in a position where he needed to produce right away, and they can be patient with him, and he can learn from Diggs, he can learn from Beasley, he can learn from Emmanuel Sanders, and kind of develop. And maybe he could be, a deep threat. His speed, like I said, is intriguing, man. There's not many guys on this earth that's walking around that run a 4.2. So, if the Bills took him, he would definitely add a much needed speed element to it, and he's definitely, an intriguing prospect. So, moving to our next speedster of the night. Marquez Stevenson from the University of Houston. This is Greg's guy. Greg was poundable for Marquez. I watched a little bit of his tape right before we got on air, and again, recurring theme. That kid is fast. He's fast. He can get vertical. I did see a little contested catchability, but that's why I like to watch guys full tapes because when you watch highlight tapes, they obviously only show what you've done, only plays that you've made. I can't see how you react to press. Can't see how you react to zone. Can't see how you react, when somebody's jamming you right in your face. How do you get off that? How do you use wide receiver nuance to get off that? I can't see any of that stuff from your highlight tape. So, Greg, since this is your guy, talk to us about, Marquez.
Sure. Let me preface my guy by just saying, in terms of my desire to fill this offense with some great vertical speed. That's why I found this kid, and I liked what he brings in that dimension. The kid is explosive. The kid's explosive, fast. He can get behind the secondary relatively easy. He's a straight line speed guy, but he has that burst. You know what I'm saying? He gets off the line fast when he's not contested. He's able to turn small plays into big plays. He's a home run guy. Now, granted, he was playing in the American. He wasn't going up against stout defenses and great cover guys that he's going to see in the NFL. But he was able to turn catches into home runs. He had 60, 70, 80, 90-yard touchdown catches. He's versatile. He's able to take screen passes and make some big plays out of them. He's got some return potential as well. So I like that about him for the fit in this offense. Now, obviously, with that being said, he's got injury concerns. He tore an ACL. He had an ankle injury. He doesn't get off press very well. If you bring anybody with any type of size down on the line with him, he's going to struggle to get free on that. And he's straight line fast. If you watch his tape, his for such a fast athlete, he actually loses a lot of speed and momentum trying to cut and be shifty. So that's a concern for me. And he also wastes a ton of time trying to be elusive and get past people. So
you're taking all my good points. I got nothing to fire back with now.
That's it. I'm done.
He did the 8 mile on you. He did the 8 mile on you.
Yeah, but we've all seen the tape. We all see the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
There's that element to like about the kid, that he is fast, and just like we said with Schwartz, he's not someone that's going to come in and say, "Hey, here's your workload, man. You're going to be the heart and soul of this offense." I would say a kid like Stevenson in the 6th round makes sense if we hadn't addressed that position yet. He has returnability. He's very, very fast. I think he was in the 4.3 range. So to me, that's still a ton of speed. He can catch some contested balls, and he offers returnability. Some of those things are the things that we're looking for right now. And a 6th-round flyer on the kid, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Obviously, there's some things that he's not going to be able to do well in the NFL, but he also offers us a ton of speed. So 6th-round pick on that kid, I'm happy with that.
TFC, give us your burning takes on Marquez.
My biggest thing is I never thought that the BYU receiver would be younger than another guy on this list. Like, all the BYU guys, because they take their 2-year mission, are like 29 when they come out of BYU. He's going to be 23 by the start of Marquez Stevenson is going to be 23 by the start of the season. He played with Derek King at Houston a million years ago. Like he was at 2016, he had snaps on the field. So he is not a project because he's a fully developed man at this point and he's playing in college. So that's what you're getting. Everything that you see is likely what you're getting. And I'm not being dramatic. He might be able to, in an NFL system, gain a couple pounds here, but he's 6'1", 190, and he's thin. Like he plays thin. He's another guy like Schwartz that does not play well through contact most of the time. And then everything that Greg said, when you take 3 stutter steps to get off the line of scrimmage, and that's on most plays, that's inefficient. That's not you being shifty. That's inefficiency. And he does that more than I like. Now, it took me a while to actually see how fast he was because of everything. He is not really I don't think he's a great route runner because of stuff like that, because he's trying so hard to set everything up. At a certain point, just run, dude. Like, just run. You're faster than everybody. Hit the brakes. Go upfield. Like, I need more of that. And there's a lot of guys that do that in this group of receivers we're talking about. But he does provide that slot versatility. First off, he's a slot guy, and he has that vertical presence. So if you've got all of those things, and he's got decent hands. Like, I'd say he's got decent hands. He's not great in contested catch situations, but he's got decent hands. He's not going to kill you in that aspect. And if he's wide open and you've got a quarterback that with a cannon that is now accurate, yeah, I can see it being a match and I can see it being a fit. And if it was in the 6th round, I'm not going to be too mad about it. I mean, he's going to be as old as Josh Allen when he gets on the field, but,
But the other thing, too, I don't want to cut anybody off, too, is I was watching some Senior Bowl tape, and I was looking at other people, and then I saw the DB matchups, and I was like, oh, here's my guy. And it was the same thing. He struggled to get out of breaks. He really struggled to separate because he did so much extracurricular movement instead of just being fast and cutting and going. So, like I said, I think that's a lot of stuff to be worked on. I don't know what happens at Houston and why they've been struggling to get him to realize that. But if we're talking about a vertical threat, like I said, in the 6th round, it makes sense.
Mud Dog, he reminds me of a guy that you'll remember. He reminds me of Deshaun Hamilton. Deshaun did that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
My dog is on you.
First, I want to crush all Bills fans that had hopes of us signing Carlos Dunlap. He's going back to Seattle for 2 years, $16 million. So sorry
Breaking
to
news,
crush your
baby.
hopes.
Breaking news.
There you
Heard
go.
it here first.
Marquise Stevens is, like I said, he's the slot guy like the other guys. He's a kick returner. He's fast. 2 things that I really like about this guy is, one, his ability to shield defenders from the pass. I'm not saying he's physical, but there's a difference between shielding and being physical. Like, he does really good at putting his body in front of the defender and shielding the pass. And he can track the deep ball really well. I wouldn't trust him blocking. And I do not want, if you get him man in coverage, forget about it. He's out of the play. And he reminds me, I know you said Deshaun Hamilton, but he reminds me of another, I know I already gave one Bear comparison, Darnell Mooney, who the Bears took a couple years ago. This is who this guy kind of reminds me of.
Yeah. I mean, Darnell Mooney had a heck of a season this year, too. So, I mean, he kind of came on. But you guys both bring up great points. Taking false steps at wide receiver is it will damn you because these DBs are too good. And once you face press in the NFL, it's a wrap. If you can't shorten up your steps, shorten up your time you're going to get out of your release and out of your breaks, they're going to, and if you can't do that, and that's the one thing that we need to understand about these speed guys, coming out of college, they rely too much on their speed. So when they get to the league and they're forced to actually have nuance to their route running, you see them struggle, i.e. Tavon Austin, i.e. John Ross. These guys who are dumb fast but can't get in and out of breaks because they rely for their whole lives. They've just been able to run past people. But when you go up against world-class athletes on literally every play, you have to separate yourself at some point in time. And that's the reoccurring themes. Now we're talking about Marquez. It's just like if you're taking 3 steps to get out of your release, a good DB is going to jam you and push you off your route every single time. So, the fact that he can't do that is very alarming to me. But again, I'm with Greg. If it's a 6th round pick or 7th round pick, kind of a flyer pick, then I'm good with that. TFC, what you got?
Yeah, one last thing is he's a kick returner too, so that's obviously an open spot on the Bills roster right now, as they don't have Andre Roberts there anymore. So that is he had
what
three
about
kick
Isaiah McKenzie?
I mean, yeah.
What they don't?
You have one guy. Like if you want a competition, go for it. This guy would be an immediate competition for kick returns because he's got 3 in the last 2 years. So, and the Bills value special teams. They want to have a guy that can create yardage there. Again, he's not strong, but he is very fast, and I think he could take it back if he got good blocking in front of him.
Again, reoccurring theme. The Bills are looking to get faster. So, a lot of these guys, they have not met with Marquez to our knowledge yet, but they did meet with Dax again, and they did meet with Schwartz. So. Moving on to our next receiver, we have Terrace Marshall from LSU. Terrace is probably my favorite prospect of all the ones that we talked to. The Bills have not spoken to Terrace Marshall because he's probably going to go very early in the draft, and wide receiver is not a need for the Bills. It is not a need. So Terrace Marshall would be taken by somebody who has a need at wide receiver. I've been seeing him mocked to the Saints, which, at 2 year ago, that probably would be a great pick, but with the cap hell that they're going through and their, indecision at quarterback, I don't know if that'd be a great pick. But the reason I love Terrace Marshall, I had the pleasure of watching his tape many times. Number one, he was the forgotten guy with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He played with both of them. He was pretty solid in contested catch situation. When his number was called, he was able to make plays. He has good speed. He can get downfield. What I really like for the Bills specifically is his positional versatility. He's able to play the slot, he's able to play outside, and he can make plays from both. Now, where my issue lies with him is what I just talked about previously, is he has the issue of not being able to sink his hips coming out of breaks. And why is that important? Because when you can't sink your hips and drop them like an anchor, this is what helps you change direction. And he does not do that well currently. But what I see in him is if he was able to get next to somebody like Diggs, get next to somebody like Beasley, I think he could be a Pro Bowl caliber receiver, which is why I don't think the Bills have a realistic shot to get him unless they take him early. But if he was to get his team, man, I think he could bring a dynamic to this offense, that would just make it go through the roof. And Josh would have a field day throwing him deep balls and contested catch balls too. So, Mud Dog, we're going to start with you. What did you see from Terrace Marshall that you like?
Well, Terrace Marshall, of all these guys we're talking about, I think he's the best all-around prospect. Out of all the guys we're talking about tonight, he's got good size. He's got good straight line speed. He could track the ball very well. And you talked about the guys he played with. Even with those guys, he averaged over 100 yards receiving, and he had double-digit TDs. So he produced with a lot of talent around him. So that says something about the young man. He has a really good burst of speed, which leads a lot of yards after catch. He can generate vertical push, which opens up the route tree. Like, there is not much you can't do with this guy. And what you said his fall was with his hips, that's coachable. There's a lot to like about this guy. The one thing I do have is you've seen something this year. His drops were up this year. Uncharacteristic. He was averaging maybe 2 or 3. Yeah, it's only 7, but you don't want to see that big of a jump when it increases every year. You want to kind of see the decline or at least steady. It kind of went up a little bit. So that is the one concern I see with this young man. Other than that, I really like this young man. I think he's an undervalued receiver, in my opinion, in this draft. He doesn't get talked enough about, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to your point, Mud Dog, about the drops going up, he played Justin Jefferson's role in the slot, the move guy. And so his targets went up significantly. So you can only think, if I'm getting more targets, I'm probably going to have more drops too. And so, but to be honest with you, in a COVID year, he played the role admirably. And you had Justin Jefferson in that role. You had Jamar Chase in that role, who opted out this year. So he wasn't playing with another running man, another guy that was as good as him also. So, when you're averaging 100 yards per game for the last 2 years with guys like that on your team, like I said, that says something about your skill set, your potential, the way you play the game, what you can do with you. That says a lot about you. Yeah. Greg, what did you see from Terrace Marshall that you like?
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit everything on point there. he's the most complete guy we're going to talk about tonight. I think he has got great size. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He might not have the world-class speed as some of these other guys have, but he's definitely NFL speed. He's actually, he looks faster. He's deceptively fast. You see him catch some of these balls where he takes and finds a seam, and he pulls away from SEC defenders. So I like the guy. I think he does. He's got a physical presence out there. He's got long arms. He has good body control. You see him go up for some of these contested catches. He understands kind of how to go for the jump ball. And I think that's something our offense doesn't really have. And I know a lot of people look to Gabe Davis because he's our biggest receiver right now, but he doesn't really play that role. He's not a rebound guy. He's not a big body guy who's going to go and make the contested catches in the end zone and the red zone like we need. I think he's great. He's got some sort of miraculous gift when it comes to the sideline. But in terms of center of the field and traffic and in the red zone, but I think we all realize we're pretty solid at receiver. So where does Marshall play in for us? Probably doesn't fit in really well for us anywhere in the draft. I don't see us going 30 for him, and I think in the second round, by the time we're on the board, he's probably gone.
You could cut Emmanuel Sanders, or you would significantly reduce Gabe Davis's role if you took Terrence Marshall. He'd be the second most talented receiver on the team physically behind Diggs, without a question.
I think he would be. I agree 100%. I think he would be an upgrade. I just don't see us in terms of draft. If we could just grab him and take him on our team, yes, I think we can. But in terms of actually drafting and building from the draft, I don't see the value in grabbing him to lose other things when we can take other things in his stead. I think he would make this offense better. I think he would be more of a dynamic player than a Gabe Davis, and probably, obviously, a great route runner than Emmanuel Sanders. But he's more dynamic, and he's at this point in the game, he's better than him. But where does he fit? I don't see him fitting into our plan just because he's going to be gone before it would make sense for us to draft a receiver. I think he's. I mean, I wouldn't shock me to see him go at the end of the second if it's a big run on wide receivers in the first round, to see someone come and take him at the end of the first, thinking I'm not going to get a chance to get a receiver that quality in the second. But I don't think we're in play for that. The kid's a great player. I think he's going to make somebody very happy. It's probably just not going to be Josh Allen.
Right. Absolutely, and that's exactly what I was. Go ahead, TJFC. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because EJ, you mentioned his hips and not really sinking and breaking. This is a mistake I made with A.J. Brown, where when you got a big guy who's 6'2", 6'3", but they have quick hips and they're able to still turn and they're able to generate separation, even if it doesn't look like the classic route runner sort of receiver, that's still a value, especially if he's able to. He's not stiff. I guess that's the difference is, there are guys that are his size, like DK Metcalf, that are stiff. They don't turn well. He does turn well. He plays well in the slot. He plays on the boundary. And that was that was the mistake I made with A.J. Brown. I don't want to make that with Terrence Marshall. Now, he's not as explosive as A.J. Brown, but I think he's got a similar skill set of being physical through the route as well. That was another thing that I really liked, and I think that is a kind of like getting off the press at the line of scrimmage. I'm kind of fixated on this of having to play through contact, because there are games that the refs aren't going to call it, and the Bills need to find a guy who can play through contact a little bit better. This is a guy that does that. And after watching all the other shifty slot route runners we're going to get to tonight, it was kind of nice watching a dude just go up and house some people. Just be like, no, I'm bigger than you and I'm playing football, so you get to lose now. And that was a lot of the fun in him. The other thing is he's a long strider. So when he does he's a good route runner. So he's got those little deceptions and speed. So when he does hit the Jets, even if he isn't super fast, he's got the corner flat-footed, and he's able to get upfield, and that's where that long stride really helps him. I really like the way he fits inside outside.
Yeah, I want to rebuttal Greg real quick.
Yeah.
If the Bills draft, if they take him at 30, I don't think it would be a wasted pick, whatever, because I think a lot of these picks are going to be for depth in the future. And what better way to plan for the future than getting a guy like Terrence Marshall? Because what if Beasley goes down? You're not going to have Samuels. Gabe Davis don't pan out. And then what are you stuck with? An aging Stephon Diggs. So why not take a flyer on somebody like Marshall, who doesn't have to come right in and be the guy, or and can learn on what his things and learn from some good guys. So when it's his time to shine, we already have a guy that can step in and be a number two. We are not trying to find a number two to complement Stephon Diggs.
I mean, yeah, if all the chips fell that way, it would make great sense. I just think that we're pretty solid right now. And, I mean, yeah, sure, we're in a great position where we could take some luxury picks and grab a receiver at 30. And it wouldn't be the most devastating thing in the world, especially somebody like Marshall. But I just think depending on what's on the board and what other needs that we have to fill, you know what I'm saying? If we're looking at, hypothetically speaking, Elijah Vera Tucker sitting there at 30, do I want to add another receiver when I could solidify the interior of my offensive line? I would say no. If one of these cornerbacks fell to 30, I would have to address the cornerback position before I add another receiver who might be better than the two guys that we have. But I also think this is an extremely deep wide receiver class, and the fact that our need isn't so pressing, that we're not desperate like we were a couple of years ago to just get anybody who could play the receiver position, that we can make some great picks in the third round, that we can really get a lot of value for the kind of role and the kind of guy we're looking for in the third round. But if they took Marshall at 30, I wouldn't freak out and say that was stupid. I just think now we're going to have one hell of an offense with a ton of talent, and we're going to have.
Oh no, more talent!
Yeah.
Oh no,
this is terrible. I just think we're going to have to make some decisions, and that's fine. And we finally be in a position where it's not a bad thing to have too many players, good players.
Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that when I was looking at Marshall and I was looking at his skill set, I was like, dog. I was like, man, he remind me of what Gabe Davis was doing, but he's just a little bit better at it. And the thing is, here's what I really want from the Bills, the perfect draft scenario, is they take pick 30 and they trade back. Then you can get the pass rusher. Then you can get a cornerback. Then you can find, maybe you could get Terrace Marshall, because I can get a cornerback. I can get Terrace Marshall. I think in the third round this year, there's probably going to be another pass rusher there that we can take. Having Jason Oweh would be nice. That's a freak right there. It would be nice.
I talk all day, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but I talk. Yeah. It's just it's finding. Obviously, we're never going to know till we know what this board's going to look like, what other teams are going to do. But there's just so many avenues to take and say, well, if we did this, this would make sense. If we
it's
did
by
that,
design too. Right. So that's the beauty of what I think they're doing is they're going into the draft. I mean, we'll get to Matt Breida later, but they don't have any. I have to have this player, this position. That they are making sure that their roster is as bulletproof as they can with the cap space that they have, and they can go into 30, and you can go, I'll window shop at Terrace Marshall, but maybe I'll go a different way. Like even the places that I think all of us think they'll go, they could go running back. They could go anywhere, and that's by design.
TFC, do not speak that in a position. Don't speak that into fruition, bro. Don't even say it.
But we talked about that last night on the Yak podcast, and it was saying like we were all, hell no way would we go running back. But now we're almost to a point now, and I am one of the biggest. Don't do it at 30, but we're getting so many holes filled where you look at and say, it wouldn't be detrimental to do those things now. If they went and got the best safety available at 30, I just think we're so solid.
I love that idea.
But what I'm saying? We're so solid right now that virtually anything we do without reaching for somebody or doing something just idiotic and taking such a flyer on a guy at 30 would be the right move.
Jeremy, I agree. Mouth Breida is not a.
I was just about to say that.
Matt Breida
Mouth
is.
Breida is. Yeah.
Oh, mouth Breida.
How nice is it to be? How awesome is it to be a Bills fan, and come draft season, we're not sitting there saying, "Oh, we need this and this." No matter how this is how I feel about it. No matter how the draft goes, it's still going to fall in our favor because, like you guys say, we don't have that glaring need. We don't have that glaring. Okay, we need this. We're that close. We did the run it back thing, which good teams do. Now let's see if we can add that depth for the future, because eventually these guys are going to go. Yes, it is a great thing to be in. It's a great time to be a Bills fan. Big things stop popping over at One Bills Drive, man.
We are in the driver's seat right now for the first time in a long time.
It's amazing having a competent general manager is great.
Absolutely. The head coach, GM, owner, quarterback. 4 things the Bills have you need to win. And Backbone 5, I think this is Mike Back. You led us right into our next receiver. My guy, right on cue. Yeah. I love it. And we see you guys all in the comments talking about Matt Breida. Yes. We are going to talk about Matt Breida at the end, so please stick around for our Matt Breida conversation at the end. So, now, we're going to Daz Newsome since he just brought up Daz Newsome. Daz Newsome is the other wide receiver that played at UNC. Opposite Diamante Brown, both very fast wide receivers. Daz is definitely a guy, who can get downfield. What I liked about Daz, first of all, he's 5'11", 190, so he's a smaller guy. What I liked about Daz is that he definitely has the speed. Again, that's a reoccurring theme. The Bills have met with him virtually. He has the speed to get downfield. He was primarily in the slot, and he probably, if I was a GM, I probably would be comfortable taking Daz in like the 4th or 5th round, and here's why. So Daz doesn't really run great routes. He's another guy that I feel relies on his speed too much. But what he does do, and what I've seen, if you can run, Stephon Diggs ran a route this year, or arrow route, a return route, where you head like you're going to take a flat route or a drag route, and you drop your hips and you go back out. And Daz did that same thing. And that told me that Daz can flip his hips. He can drop his hips and he can change direction quickly on top of being fast. And so if someone was to work with Daz, like a Cole Beasley, and show him how to, create more separation from the slot, I think he could be a steal, out of this draft for Brandon Beane. And again, as we talked about with Terrace Marshall, Daz would be in a position where he wouldn't have to come in and fill a need right away, and he wouldn't have to play right away, but he can be waiting in the wings to eventually, Cole Beasley was playing with a broken fibula this year. So like you said, Greg, if he go down, like who are we going to have to take his spot? So I think Daz Newsome is in a prime position. He was drafted by the Bills to learn and become a better player. But TFC, I want you to start us off and tell us what you saw from Daz that you liked.
So I don't think he's a bad route runner, but I think he's a predictable route runner. And that was the one thing I noticed is he had a lot of tells. So he's telling everybody where he's going because he's chopping his feet and he's turning that way and he's turning his head first and he's looking where he's going. So I think there are small things to clean up. The main thing that I wonder is he did have limited downfield production because of this, just what he was asked to do. But when you saw him get a chance to get downfield, he was dynamic. He was able to catch the ball, track it over his shoulder, slot fades, all that stuff. So he's got all of that. And my favorite part, and I never say this about a receiver, but my favorite part was you remember Rocky? Was it Rocky 4 when he was letting Drago hit him in the face? Like that's Daz Newsome. That's Daz Newsome as a run blocker. He's like, come over here. I got this guy. Like he's got the slot on lockdown. And I love the swagger of that in the middle of the play to look at the running back and go, nah, bro, I got you. You've got the edge here. So I love his mentality that I saw in film. And I can't believe I'm talking about blocking for a slot receiver, but he's good at it. And I think he's got all the other stuff. That's the thing. He's got all the other stuff you want. It's just kind of shaving it off and making it all polish a little better.
Yeah.
Greg, what did you see from Daz?
I like the kid. I mean, you have somebody who was highly productive in limited reps. He played on an offense that obviously we had Javonte Williams, we had Carter, he had De'Ami Brown. So there was a lot of mouths to be fed on that offense, and he was still extremely productive. He has the formation versatility. He was in the slot. They motioned him a lot. He came out of the backfield. So I think he has that. He's deceptively fast. I think he's a very smooth guy with the ball in his hand. He can cut. He can slash. He's very sudden. So these are some of his plays where he's going, he's north-south, stops, and now he's east-west, back to north-south. So I like that about him. He gets as many yards there as to get and then creates some on his own. And then, like you said, TFC, he's a tough little son of a gun. He's not afraid to be physical. He's not afraid to be physical with the ball in his hand. He's not afraid to be physical blocking or going over the middle. There's a couple games where I've seen this kid get popped with the ball. Comes down with it, holds on to it. So I like that grit about him. And I think what we're looking here is, do we bring somebody in who could do different things? He also has the kick return ability. And I think that's something that we have to keep an eye on. And we're going to bring somebody into this team, they have to be able to do a little bit more than just be a fast guy or be this guy. So he has that versatility. And I think in drafting him, I have him in the 3rd round because we don't have that 4th round pick. So for us, if our need is there, I think we're going to have to overdraft the guy. If we see Daz Newsome still on the board and we're in the 3rd round and we're saying, all right, we're not going to be there in the 4th, and that's a guy that we have pegged, I think he makes a lot of sense for us in the 3rd round. Obviously, we've talked about this. We talk about it depending on what's on the board and where the value is. But if things were addressed in 1 and 2 and Daz Newsome was there in the 3rd, I think it would make sense. I think there would be good value there. I think he's probably a 4th-round receiver, but we don't have that. So that changes our outlook and where we're going to grab guys. So I have him pegged in the 3rd round, and I think that would be a little bit of a climb for him, but I think we get a lot of return out of a kid like him. I think he's got a lot of potential, and you put him in the system and let him learn behind guys like Beasley, learn how to become a better route runner from Stephon Diggs and stuff like that. I think we have ourselves a guy for the future.
Absolutely. And to both you guys' point, my first note on him is really feisty, will mix it up as a blocker. And you love to see it every time when you see a wide receiver blocker. I mentioned on the last show that we had, look at what Stephon Diggs did with blocking. Look at how much better a blocker Gabe Davis is. I'm not saying it's because of Stephon Diggs, but when your best wide receiver is out there putting his body on the line, blocking like a savage, everybody else who in the wide receiver room are going to do it too. So that was a great point you brought up about blocking. So Mud Dog, what did you see from Daz that you like?
When you look at a guy like Daz, you have to say this dude has that dog mentality. Like TFC said earlier, he will tell, hey, just come my way, I'm a block for you. He is not afraid to get down and dirty. He don't care if you're a 200-something pound linebacker coming or a safety. He's going to take on that block, and he does really good. And when he's a wide receiver, when he has that ball in the hand, he reminds me of a running back, a good running back running with the ball. It don't matter if you have 3 guys on him, he's falling forward to get that extra inch. He is the ultimate team guy, in my opinion, because no matter if it was high school, college, you got to remember this kid was a corner coming out of college. Yeah. They transformed him to a wide receiver, running back. He played safety. Whatever the coaches wanted this young man to do, he did it without no complaint. And if you go back and watch some of the tape at these other positions he played at, he did it really well. He honed his craft. This guy has a high work ethic. He makes very positive yardage. He adjusts his body really well to errant throws. Really good in the run blocking, like you said. I'm not going to lie. When I looked at this guy, you know who he reminded me of? Hines Ward. He always had a smile on his face, was not afraid to hit somebody. He did not care.
Tiny Hines.
It. Yes. I love the way he can adjust his body on bad throws. Like he's triple jointed sometimes with some of the throws you've seen at him. Yeah. And also, how good is it to see UNC and Mac Brown? They got some ballers coming out into the draft this year.
Yeah, man.
They got something going there.
So
I was just getting ready
Greg
to say
said,
that.
You know, something Greg said earlier, and when we're talking about projection and some of these guys, what do they project to in the future? I think the best part about Daz Newsome is you can clearly project what he's going to be in the NFL and in the Bills offense, and he's got all of the skills to do it, plus the fun part of him just being a mean son of a gun when he's a blocker. Yeah. Like, I love the fact that you can clearly see he could be a Cole Beasley slot receiver who can win downfield with great separation instead of having to kind of square peg round hole sort of thing with some of the other guys we've talked about.
TFC said it earlier when we were talking about somebody about how they catch the ball and they're not catching it like this. This dude catches the ball like you want out of receiver. I think he does everything right, and he does other things really good. I like him.
I'm a real fan of Daz. I'm not a big fan, but I'm a fan of Daz. If the Bills took him, I think it would definitely be a great pick. Like you said, Greg, they don't have a 4th-round pick, so they may have to overvalue for him. But, if they took him, I would not be upset. And to another point that you guys are making, I was just thinking, the Bills have been looking at guys from USC a lot. Like they drafted Antonio Williams from UNC. You got Dyami Brown. You got Daz Newsome now. Javonte Williams. Like I feel like UNC is becoming Bills U, so to speak, because they're looking at guys from
it's
UNC. Yeah,
he loves his ACC guys. Look back in Carolina, he drafted a lot of ACC guys.
Yeah, so. UNC
Helps
is
that
definitely a
UNC
lot of
was just down the road, right?
And I said that same thing too. I was like, it helped too. Yeah, definitely. So
we got more Carolina guys coming north. Look at that. I thought that
escape
was
them, bro.
It's just another way to go bringing in Carolina guys. We should have.
In reality, it's happening the other way. Everyone's moving to North Carolina, but apparently this is the trickle up effect from North Carolina.
Right. So Daz is definitely a prospect that we are definitely going to keep our eyes on. Heavily. And as we get to our last prospect of the night, the prospect that everyone on this panel but me loves, Mr. Rondale Moore from Purdue. I'm sorry, guys. I did not have any tape on him to cut up and give you guys some highlights, and I really apologize for that because I knew
It's 'cause
all
you're a
three
hater.
of my guys. It's because they love Rondell.
You drink
and I
a
was looking through my
haterade.
tape, and I was like, man, I don't have any tape, any clips to cut up, man. I was like, they're gonna be at me for. I was like,
No,
but it's all
nobody
right.
does
I
for the
know,
last 2 years, so you're not alone.
I was gonna say
That's the
Okay,
problem.
okay.
Problem.
All right.
It's not like there's been a lot of it for
I'm
2
glad.
years.
Yeah. What he played a total like 20 games or something like that, right?
20
Yeah.
total career. I think it was
Yeah,
4 and 3 over the
yeah.
last 2 years.
Yep.
But the
Yeah,
big
so
one,
he
he
has-
embarrassed the hell out of Ohio State, though.
Yeah, put Sean Wade on the bench.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean Wade's garbage, man. Anyway, I don't know how he getting.
That's
drafted.
probably why,
See,
why
they
he
do.
is. I think
That's
all his
really
confidence.
good.
He lost his confidence
Right.
2 years ago.
But what I want to know what you guys think about Rondell Moore. We know he's explosive. I'm reading some of the stuff that people are saying about him. One of the things I see him to say that he has a lot of snaps out of the backfield, which they didn't like. They said his cuts and short area quickness are at a different speed, which is always intriguing to NFL teams. You know, he's a fast guy. What else are they saying? They said you never know that his quarterback has played NFL games from the target reel. He makes some of the sharpest cuts someone has ever seen. So a lot of, swift, shifty moves from Rondell Moore. So Mud Dog, this is your guy. You're the most bullish on him. Talk about your guy Rondell Moore. What you like, what you don't like.
First off, let me get to his little pro day stats here. His vertical was 42.5. Okay? That's longer than that's higher than DK Metcalf's, and this dude's only 5'7". Okay?
He's getting up to DK kneecaps at that
Yeah.
point.
4'2", 40 times, something like that. Squat 600 pounds for a guy his size. That's impressive. Not just that, they got video of him putting up 24 reps at like 200 something, whatever it is.
225, yeah.
225. That's all really impressive for a guy his frame. Now here comes the problem. He's only 5'7". Question for you guys. How many receivers in the NFL right now are 5'7"? I'll answer it for you. Just one. Hakeem Grant, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
5'8"s. That we do not have many 5'7". I could go on everything I like about this guy, but I'll start off. His durability is a big issue with me, especially in the NFL. Yes, he's strong and everything, but the NFL is a different breed. The guys, when they don't get flagged for it, they hit harder. And he has a tendency a lot of times to drop easy passes because he's too focused on trying to get those yaks. Seeing that, the open field, and he loses concentration. To me, that's a red flag as a receiver. But when you bring a guy in like Rondell Moore, you bring him in to be the Tyreek Hill type guy. I can do whatever I want with him. And you can do so much with him. You can find out a way to work him in space and press him. He got a hard sell. He creates big chunks that way. You look at his tape. He embarrassed Ohio State. He's like that Swiss Army. Really good in the return game. I think he brings really good return game capability. He's got that hold your breath on every play, in my opinion, that he takes. And every time he touches it, hold your breath and see what happens. So I'm really high on him at 30. If he's there, I know we have weapons at offense and everything, but this is the rich man's Isaiah McKenzie, may I say.
Whoa. Oh
I was
my
going to go there if
gosh.
you didn't.
Oh,
The rich man's Isaiah McKenzie. You could do so much with him. It's unbelievable. But his durability and the lack of focus, in my opinion, of trying to catch the ball is a big. It is a problem. I'm not gonna lie.
EJ, you're just chomping at the bit. Why don't you just go?
Yes,
Why
you
don't-
go.
Why don't you just go next? Say why you don't like Rondell
I mean,
Moore,
listen.
and then be wrong
did-
right
well,
now, and then we'll finish up
listen.
later.
I didn't say I didn't like Rondell. It's just, number one, he hasn't many college games. So that's definitely a red flag. His injury history, like the Mud Dog said, is most certainly a red flag. He is explosive. I will give him that. Every time I think of Rondell Moore, I think of Amari Rodgers. I don't know why, but I just think of both of them because they have the same type of build.
Yeah.
I think Amari Rodgers may be like a little bit taller than him, obviously.
Yeah, he's
But
about
I mean-
2.5 inches taller
Inches.
and about 20
Yeah,
pounds heavier.
Heavier, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, But I just think of them both at the same time when I think of each other. But I mean, I really didn't see a lot from Rondale Moore. That's why I don't. He's always being mocked in the first round. And I'm saying, how can you mock somebody in the first round who, first of all, hasn't played that much and has an injury history? I'd rather have a guy like Terrence Marshall than Rondale Moore, in my opinion. But that's just me. Everyone doesn't like my takes because I always goes against the grain. So TFC, what do you think about that?
There we go.
There
Sorry
we
about
go.
that.
You win.
I'll start with a quick story. It's gonna be folksy and cute, I promise. When I was a kid, I grew up in the country. My grandma, she was a farmer her whole life. We were coming back from church one day, and I said, "Grandma, why are you going this way? Why aren't we going the other way?" And she told me, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I want to go home, so we're not going the way you want to go. And that's what I think of when I think of Rondale Moore with the ball in his hands. He has route running ADHD. Like, he's high-stepping 1 second. He is upfield the next. He's trying to break every single tackle that's in front of him. And when he finishes, he's putting his head into somebody's chest. So, like, there's a lot going on in every single Rondale Moore snap. And parts of it I love. Like Mud Dog said, I can't get enough of watching this guy play because it's so crazy. Like, it's just crazy to watch a guy 5'7", 180 play like he's 210. And that's what you got with Rondale Moore. Now, the part where he doesn't get upfield there, sometimes I'm screaming at him, just run, dude. Just run upfield. Outside of that, that's really the injuries are obviously a thing, but that's the only thing I had a real problem with. Do you know how many deep targets he's had in his career at Purdue?
Not many.
8.
Yeah.
8 deep targets because he was not on the field this past year when they had a half competent quarterback. He was not on the field last year when he was injured. And then they had a guy that couldn't operate an offense when he was a true freshman. The one thing I'll say is he was effective in 2020 even when he was injured. So you didn't see the same explosion, the same violence out of him, but he was still quick. He still got in and out of his burst, out of his cuts. I really like what Rondale Moore does. And again, going back to projection, he fits the needs of what the Bills need on offense. Speed, slot, and I think he could play outside if he needed to, and the kick return, dynamic ability to, jet sweeps, all that stuff. You can do all those things, and he is a downfield presence because we've seen on a couple of, the 4.29 speed gives you a clear indication that he's a guy that can get behind just about anybody if he wants to. As long as he doesn't have route ADHD.
Greg.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I like the kid. It's hard not to watch, put his highlight reel in and say, come away from that saying, he's electric. He's so dynamic. He's fun to watch. He's one of those guys, and I think Mud Dog said it, you kind of hold your breath because what's it going to be? He has that kind of game to him. So he could take these short passes, and he can make people miss. He's fun to watch. I think you can be really creative with a Rondale Moore in your offense. And I think that's something that fits our offense because Dabble has shown that he likes to be versatile and use guys in a plethora of ways. And I think Rondale Moore fits that. It's hard not to like a guy. He's a little pit bull. He's 5'7", 180 pounds. He plays like he's 240 pounds. He runs at times like a fullback, like a running back. He puts his shoulder in. He's very elusive in he's like a guy you can't tackle in a phone booth. He has that kind of elusiveness in a short area, which I think is something that we could use in our offense. Now, what I don't like about him, I think we're all going to go on it. If you're going to draft Rondale Moore and you're the Buffalo Bills, you're probably going to have to take him at 30. He's not going to be there in the second round for us. So when you're saying I'm drafting this guy in the first round, you immediately you're looking at this guy's played 20 college career games because he's been injured for 2 seasons in a row. He's a smaller guy. He's obviously durability issues. Now you're also factor in that he's got the dropsies and he has a lack of focus. And you could say, well, he wants to turn on and run the ball. That's his game. That's his style of play. His style is run after the catch, turn around and make people miss. So I'm not saying that's something that would keep me from drafting him. But now you're talking about taking him at 30. There's a couple issues here. Health is a concern. His focus on catching the ball is a concern. I went back. He's only averaging 10 yards of reception. So that struck me as strange with a guy with his athletic ability. And I understand he didn't play with a great quarterback and a great system, and they probably misused him to a certain extent. But I don't know where his big time plays were downfield and why he wasn't used as much in that capacity. So it's not seen. So I'm not saying he can't do it and he's incapable of doing it. I think he can do a lot of things. But there's a little question mark around that guy, and I think if I'm taking him at 30, I want to be a little bit more confident in the whole package, in his health and where he fits, and if he's able to do those things that we want to do consistently enough. Yes, we're in a position. Yeah,
I'd say if there weren't those issues, he wouldn't be there at 30.
no.
So that's
hands
the.
down.
I think the reason I would be fine with the Bills taking Rondale Moore at 30 is because I think the value is top 15. Like, you know, as far as a dynamic talent. And yes, he hasn't been on the field a lot, but he's been productive when he has been on the field. And, you know, he averaged 13 yards of reception in 2019. This past year, he averaged 7.5 while injured in a pandemic. After coming back from, you know, I think he's had a couple of lower body injuries. The knee, I don't think was fully ready to come back. And yeah, when you have a calf injury after you had a knee injury, to me, it sounds like he was pushing his rehab too hard. So I think that those are connected. But when you look at a guy who's productive when he's on the field, that doesn't scare me as much with the limited games. Now, it doesn't scare me. It's not like it doesn't scare me at all. But I do think that there is, you know, some things that can make you feel better about the fact that when you see him on the field, you can't take your eyes off of him.
No, and I think that's what I was saying is this year, like I said, if this was 2-3 years ago, we couldn't take that risk. I feel like we needed a surefire thing. We're in that position now at 30. If you said we draft Rondale Moore, he checks a ton of boxes and what we need offensively. It could be our punt returner. He has those kind of things. He could be explosive, and like you said, if he stays healthy and he's on the field. Well, we just took a top 15 draft pick at 30. And if it doesn't work out and he is injured, we're not at a loss there. So I think if any year you're going to take a flyer on a guy or take a risk, it's this year because we're the most complete team we've been. And especially if you're talking about receiver, even Rondale Moore with his talent, we're not going to ask him to come in day one and be the guy. And I think it's a safety, it's an assurance policy for us for drafting somebody with his type of red flags in terms of his medical history at 30. That if it doesn't pan out, if he does stay nicked up and he doesn't give us 100% of the games, well, we didn't really lose a ton because we're fine without him.
The injury history isn't as much to me as the 5'7" is. That's the part that I actually is kind of a problem for me because like Mud Dog said, I don't know of any 5'7" receivers. When he asked that question, I'm glad he has the answer. Because I don't know of any, and that sort of precedence does concern me that maybe he doesn't have the size to make it at the NFL level. Yeah. But you know, everything else, I'm all on board.
Here's the thing to go on Greg's thing about them not using him right. Correct me if I'm wrong, TFC, because you reported Penn State. You gotta know your Big Ten. Purdue was pretty much like a screen dink-a-dunk type offense. Like they didn't really push the ball downfield a lot.
Yeah, so their offensive line wasn't any good, so they couldn't, and their quarterback wasn't any good.
Yeah, so a lot of the reason why their offense scored or kept big drives is because on those short things he logged big chunks from nothing. I mean, because they didn't, like you said, they didn't use him like they should have.
They were starting to before he got injured in 2019. He was averaging almost 9 yards a catch. He was getting downfield a little more. They were opening the offense up. And then he and the quarterback got hurt on the same exact play, and they were both out for the season. I think it was a non-conference game. I can't remember right off the top of my head.
It was like the fifth game of the season or something. But he was
might have been against Indiana.
Yeah.
Minnesota. It was Minnesota. Yeah.
He averaged like almost 13 yards per receiving till that injury. So they were starting to use him more, but then he got injured, knee, calf, and then COVID last year. Like you said, all those things you mentioned, Greg, I think hurt his draft stock. And like TFC said, if those weren't the issue, he's definitely a top 15 talent. He's a top 15 talent now, in my opinion. He's a top 15 pick this year.
Yeah. And one thing that you guys all brought up, which is a great thing, and you guys keep on talking about projection, and that's the type of things that you need to project. You know, if you look at the offense that he played in, his skill set wasn't utilized correctly. So getting him in an offense that can utilize his skill set correctly, you know, we could get him to be a top 15 pick and get that return on investment. You know, and that's another, you know, coaches can really, prohibit somebody's draft stock, and it takes like a special scout or scouting to be like, hey, we could put this guy in our offense and it can go to another level because he has these traits, and these where traits come in, and he has these traits that can translate to our offense and make him more explosive. So I think we're all in agreement that Rondale Moore is definitely an explosive prospect, and if the Bills were to get him, it would definitely be an upgrade, for the offense. Again, the injury history scares us. Me personally, I'd rather have Terrence Marshall, but if Rondale Moore is the Bills' pick at 30, I really will not be upset about it. So those are all the prospects that we think the Bills should either target or have talked to. Now we've been seeing in the comments that everybody wants to talk about Matt Breida. The Bills have signed Matt Breida to a contract for 1 year. Initial thoughts from me when I saw it, it's just screams speed. I mean, he's been the fastest back in the league for the past 2 seasons. The Bills Mafia has been clamoring to get a guy with some speed, and now you got a guy with some speed. Now, here is the thing, and where I think that Bills Mafia is not going to waver, and anybody else is going to waver, even though TFC kind of spoils it for me already. I think that this should deter Bean from taking a running back at 30 if you already got speed. Everyone thinks Travis Etienne is going to come in here and be the next, Alvin Kamara or the next Derrick Henry, and I just really don't see that. But what do you guys think when you saw the Matt Breida signing? Greg, what'd you think of it?
I was saying earlier, I put out an article in January, pegging some of these guys that would be inexpensive options to kind of bolster our team, and Breida was one of my guys. I think he brings in that speed element to a backfield that you kind of have guys that are, Singletary is not explosively fast. He's shifty. He can pick up yards after the catch by being shifty and able to break tackles like that. Zach Moss is a different type of running back. I think he's more of a power between the tackles kind of guy. We don't have that get out and beat the edge and dynamic speed guys where we can get, if Breida has the speed, if we can give him a lane, he could take that and give you big yards off that. So I think that's something that we haven't had. I don't know what we paid for him. Someone said it was it $1 million, something like that, whatever.
Something.
Very, very.
Yeah, they're all going to be around that at this point.
I think there's a high reward versus a very low risk signing, and I hope that would kind of end the discussion at taking a running back at 30. And I honestly think Matt Breida might have saved this team in making our first round pick a better pick. I guess I could say him being on this team would prevent us from taking a Travis Etienne and would now upgrade us somewhere else on the team, be at cornerback, pass rusher, or the interior of the offensive line. So I like the pick all around. How could you hate it?
And then back to my previous point about what the Bills' perfect draft scenario would be if they traded back and got, let's just go hypothetical, and they got 3 second-round picks, right, or even 2. Then I wouldn't be mad at the ETN pick if you picked him in the second round. I wouldn't hate that because then you can also get a corner. You can also get a pass rusher. It's just taking him in a first round.
You're drunk on mock draft simulators, man.
Nah,
3 second-round picks.
I ain't drunk on mock draft.
You're drunk at the wheel with his mock draft.
Nah, they could get 3. I said hypothetical, bro. I said hypothetical. But TMC, what'd you think of Matt Breida?
Maybe the Falcons will give us 3 third-round picks for him. I mean, they seem to be just giving away draft picks to Bills. So.
So Greg and I both independently wrote about Matt Breida earlier this year as far as guys to target with speed, because the roster and the Bills have a lot of sameness at the running back position. So we talked about when we broke down the running backs earlier this year is that want a guy with speed. Matt Breida is a value option. He's a home run hitter. And I think it signals that they might want to go a little more zone. He's a better zone runner where he can cut back. He can get out, on the edge, and he can be devastating if you give him a good lane. He's not strong. He is tackled by the wind sometimes, and he has some fumbling issues because of all that stuff. So he does not preclude even taking a running back. He is just insurance that if you don't, you have a guy who's a home run threat. He can be a kick returner. But again, he's not a complete back by any means. But this is when you build a committee, this is what you do. You get a guy who's your power back, and Zach Moss is that. You have your every down sort of middle of the road, does everything sort of well, and that's Devin Singletary. And then you got a speed guy or a receiving guy, and you have Matt Breida. They've completed the backfield that they've been trying to build for 3 years now. So I'm not all about trying to break that down by selecting another running back unless it's a clear upgrade and manna falls from heaven. I'm very happy with this. I think it adds everything, and huzzah.
My dog.
Unless it's Javonte Williams somewhere.
Right,
Damn you,
right.
damn you, Greg! You stole my line. I was about to open with that. See, this is why I hate talking after you two, because you leave me tripping over my words, and I can't even talk right to begin with.
I just said
Whatever.
huzzah, so you are going to say something way better than what I said.
This is something CFR guys, it's me, Jeremy, and like Clayton, we talked about last year in free agency, bringing in Breida because of his speed. They even said something. You guys wrote the articles. To a fan that understands football, whatever, it just made sense. You had that missing piece, like you just said. He hits it, home run hitter, outside. Don't expect him to break any tackles. It's going to be a nice deal. I guarantee you it's going to be a million thing. It just makes real sense. It shows that come draft time, their options in the draft are just unlimited. I've been saying it from jump. Do not be surprised if this is the year Brandon Beane trades back. Because you look at teams like the Lions and Falcons who are rebuilding or sitting there in the second round. If you look at the draft chart, they could give up a second and a fourth and a third next year and move up to our spot.
Do you really think he's going to trade back?
I really do. I have said it from the beginning because of the way the roster, especially when free agency started. I've said this to EJ. I've said it to Jeremy. I keep pounding it. This could be the year he trades back because we are in a good position to do it. We don't have a glaring hole. Everything, any pick that we get, it's a luxury. We both know Beane loves draft picks.
He also likes giving them away to trade up. He has traded up so many times in so many drafts.
The trade up is far into the 15 for where we're at right now. With only that one first, I don't see him giving up a first next year. Remember, a lot of times you trade up, he had a little bit of extra capital to mess with.
Yeah.
Really don't have it right here. Yeah. So I see this is the year for him to trade back. And I've been saying it from the beginning. It just makes sense, in my opinion, because we have that luxury right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like we have, we go over it and we try to analyze it. We try to go over it and analyze it, try to go over it and analyze it. And if all the variables are out there and it's like, all right, well, who's on the board? And we've all played the draft simulator and seen what happened and who's off there. And sometimes you come across, the field and it's like, man, there's really nothing here I want. That could be the scenario on draft night where pick 30 comes up and it's like, okay, I'm kind of reaching in these areas. The value for some of these guys isn't really there. I'll move back a couple spots and pick up some capital. I could see that happening, but it would have to strongly depend on what we're leaving on the board. If we walked away with a sure upgrade or a player that would make a ton of sense to grab another draft pick, a fourth-round pick or something like that, I would be against that. But I don't see Beane playing stupid and moving back to pick up some draft capital, leaving something good on the board.
Yeah, but when you're doing it with a team that's picking kind of early in the second round, and in this year's draft, I don't think the value is that much different, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense. Like if you're trading all the way back in somebody in the middle of the second round, then I think you're stupid. But if you're trading back with a team like Atlanta, Detroit, one of those early picks in the second round, that's where I'm saying I could see him trading. Because one of those guys is going to trade up. Because both those teams need a lot of help. On the O-line side of the ball, Atlanta needs a running back. If Travis Etienne's there, I don't care what anybody says. I know Atlanta's done a lot of research on him. That's a possibility. That's what I'm saying. One of those early teams are going to want to trade up from the second round and grab a guy.
I'm not against that at all. And like I said, if the fit and the value are there for any of these things that we've talked about tonight, I'm on board with it. To me, it's hard to have these conversations because we don't have the control of the laboratory here. We don't know what is on the board to say yes, these other things are good to go. So. If we're on the board, and like I said, it's one of those boards where there's not a lot of things there that would make a ton of sense, and we can move back 5-6 spots, pick up a draft pick, and probably get a guy we want anyway, more the merrier. I'm fine with that. I just would never want to leave somebody on the board that makes too much sense. And I always keep coming back to Elijah Vera Tucker because to me, he's one of the most important guys in our draft. If he ever fell to us there, I think that would be the home run for us on this team and complete that offensive line and bring that piece in. But I always go back, something like that. If that is sitting there, or that cornerback is sitting there at 30, it's hard to pass on those guys, even for the extra draft capital.
Is there a guy, just to play devil's advocate, is there a guy that you think in the first round, in the 15 to 20, well, let's do the 20s, that you think Brandon Beane would trade up for? A guy, because they've also been, we got to go get our guy. We got to go get Cody Ford. We got to go get the guys that we like. I think they traded up for Zay Jones.
Yeah,
So they target specific players. And if there's a guy, who would it be in the 20s that they would trade up for and maybe give up extra draft capital that they picked up?
See, I think you would have to then say, okay, what are our needs? And then identifying that glaring need as that guy. And me personally, breaking this thing, I think the interior of this offensive line or that cornerback would be make the most sense to go up and get. If one of those guys fell, like I said, I keep going back to Elijah Vera Tucker because I'm in love with the kid. I think he is a day one starter. I think he's an instant upgrade. So if they were able to coordinate something and move up those spots and grab him, because he could realistically be on the board in the 20 range. I don't think that would blow anybody's mind. But then I could also see him going off at pick 10. He's that kind of player. But someone like that there, I could see them going up and identifying and getting. Outside of those two positions, to me, I don't see why we would go up and get them unless it was just a Kwity Paye was there and it's like, hey, you know what? Screw it. We're going in and we're grabbing that guy.
Yes, sir, my
dog. If you see Kyle Pitts slide and he's getting into 12, 13, 14, if I'm Beane, I'm moving up to get that guy.
I mean,
that would be the one guy, in my opinion, that could slide into those rounds that would move up and get. Other than that, as much as I like Vera Tucker, like you said, Kwity Paye is the most NFL-ready defensive end in this draft. Will he be the guy that blows you off with 18 sacks a year? No, but he's going to be Mr. Consistent, at least 10 or 11 every year. I'm not trading up to get him. If somebody like Pitts doesn't slide, I'm going to stay at 30 because, to me, right now what we have a bag full of Jolly Ranchers, and I reach in and, watermelon, my favorite kind. Another watermelon, my favorite flavor. That's how I feel this draft is right now. The options are unlimited. No matter how the draft board falls, I think it falls in our favor. And that's why I feel trading back, this could be the year to do it. Because like you said, somebody like Vera Tucker probably will slide. And guess what? Like I said, Atlanta and Detroit are sitting there, and they need O-line help.
Yeah. See, there's like I said, there's so many. I agree with you 100%, Mud Dog, that we're in the best position. And there's really very, very few ways to F this up. You know what I'm saying? There's really, I don't see how Beane could screw this up unless he just had
draft a quarterback.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that would be it. Yeah. That would be like, hey, we're gonna get Mac Jones and we're gonna parlay this later on. Like that would be the what the hell just happened thing. Other than that, pretty much within consideration, every other move outside of a quarterback or a kicker would make sense for this team because we have it all and we're just going to upgrade, and that's great, and that's what good teams do. They upgrade and they bring in more talent and they get better, and we're in a great position to do that at any position outside, obviously, of quarterback and kicker.
And how great is it that for finally the Bills are not chasing the Patriots or a team like we're actually chasing a Super Bowl ring. When you see like teams like what the Patriots done, overpaying for Nelson Aguilar like they did, they gave what's that tight end? I drew a blank. They gave him
Travis Smith.
They gave him $50 million. You give those guys pretty much Travis Kelce type money when they're not on Travis. That tells you desperation. Teams are chasing us now. And I love this film. Like, I am not worried about one team in our division. I don't care until Dolphins get rid of Tua. I ain't worried about them. I'm definitely not worried about the Jets. And I'm not worried about the Patriots because you can see the desperation in their moves. We are so close to a Super Bowl. We were so close. It's just awesome to be a fan right now. I hate to sound like a fanboy. Yeah. It's just good. Big things popping at One Bills Drive, baby.
Yeah. Woo! Yes, sir. And I think we all can agree that if the Bills, this is the year that if the Bills trade back and get more picks and accumulate more good players, this would be the year to do it. So, I mean, they're in a great spot. And like you guys said, they don't have any glaring holes. You know, they're like a piece or two away from winning the Super Bowl. You know, so hats off to Bean for being a consistent GM and making moves that's going to put this team in great contention from a draft spot, a cap spot, like everywhere. I mean, just having that great GM just makes such a big difference. And if Bean traded back, that'd be probably the best move for him. So as we wrap up, anybody have any going away thoughts, any lasting thoughts before we get out of here?
How about that athleticism at Penn State, huh? I just want to say that. I don't know if there's any Penn State fans in the building, but boy, did those guys put on a pro day, huh?
Of course, he had to bring up the Penn State guys. Yeah,
I want to say, I wore this shirt specifically to maintain my neutrality after a long day of being in all of that. I wore the Oklahoma Baker Mayfield shirt just to kind of give it a neutral palette so I wouldn't seem like a Titanic homer today. So
no, but they had a great day. You know, Michael Parsons, I was in his pro day. I was in his question and answer for, and I really like Michael Parsons, and he had good answers, and he sounded like he was ready to take that next step into the NFL. And we already know about Jason Oweh and Lamont Wade. And Penn State has a great guys, and hopefully one of those Penn State guys will be a Bill, preferably Michael Parsons, but maybe Jason Oweh wouldn't be mad at that
either. I'll take an Oweh or a Shaka.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You might end up with a Will Fries. So.
Hey, that's all right. Good solid backup guard,
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we get out of here, I want to thank everyone who's tuned in on Facebook, who's tuned in on YouTube and on Periscope. Appreciate everyone. Appreciate all the love. We are going to do what position next, guys? We're going to do it right now. What position are we doing next?
Tight end.
All right, bet tight end.
All right.
Tight ends we have next. That is a position of need for the Bills. We will do tight ends next. And tune in next Thursday, 9 p.m. for our draft show on tight ends as we bring you some upgrades in tight ends who can actually catch the football.
Consistently.
Yes.
Right.